White Lilacs, a novel by Carolyn Meyer. Chapter 3, A Special Gift. I was down on my knees, digging dandelions out of the grass in Mrs. Bell's back lawn, making sure to get the whole long route so they wouldn't come back. But they always did anyways. In freedom, we just let them come up wherever we wanted to, thinking their little yellow faces were pretty, but Mrs. Bell didn't like them, so out they came. "Excuse me," a voice sang out from the other side of the iron picket fence surrounding Mr. Bell's property. "Hello there." I straightened up to see who was calling and caught sight of a white lady. It was the white lady from the north who had been at Mrs. Bell's luncheon. "Hello," she called again, waving and smiling. I picked myself up and tried to brush the dirt off my hands and knees before I ran over to the fence to see what she wanted. "Yes?" "Good morning," she said. "I'm Miss Emily Firth. I'm acquaintance of Mrs. Bell's, and she's given me her permission to come out here and sketch." I noticed that her eyes were the color of blue bonnets, and when she smiled, her small white teeth were perfectly even. She held up a large pad of fine white paper and a box of pencils. "Yes, I said, sliding looks at that pad and pencil box, wishing they belonged to me. "What I'd like to do," she explained, "is to make a sketch of you and that man." She nodded towards Grandfather. "Is he a relative of you? The two of you working in the garden makes such a lovely composition." This surprised me. I knew why she wanted to make pictures of Mrs. Bell's garden, but a picture of a young colored girl and her grandfather. I went to unlatch the gate for her. "What's your name, please?" she asked. Seemed she didn't recognize me from when I served her lunch the day before. "Rose Lee, ma'am." "Nice to meet you, Rose Lee. I won't need to trouble you anymore. Please go on with whatever you're doing and pretend I'm not here." I went back to work on the dandelions, keeping an eye out for Miss Firth. She set up a little folding stool that I hadn't noticed before, a strip of canvas on a wooden frame, and she opened her large sketchbook, selected a pencil, and squinted at me. I tried to pay no attention and kept on my work, but I kept thinking about the lines she was making on that white paper, the almost magical strokes that could create a likeness. What kind of likeness was she making of me? Then my mind wandered away from Miss Firth and back to Miss Eunice Bell and the plans of the garden club. When I looked up again, Miss Firth had gone. The next day she came back. "I always thought our rose gardens in Philadelphia were beautiful," she said, unfolding her little stool, "but I believe your gardens here in Texas are even more spectacular." I tried to picture Philadelphia on the map hanging on the wall of my school. I had a good memory for how things looked, including maps. Philadelphia, I remembered now, over in the corner of Pennsylvania, seemed far away from Dillon, Texas. Through the morning hours she sketched. It was cool in the forenoon, and she had, I suppose, learned that this was the time when the light was calmer and the sun not yet so hot, and no insects stirred the air. "Come and see this, Rosalie," she called to me. She offered me the book, but my hands were dirty and I kept them behind my back. "Wait," she said, "I'll turn the pages for you." Her drawings were spare and simple, never one line more than was necessary to show what she wanted to show. Her picture of Grandfather and me was as plain as the rest, two figures at work among the flowers. The kneeling figure was both me and not me. The bent-over figure was Grandfather, but it was also any bent-over old man. We were part of a design. I thought the picture was beautiful, and I told her so, and then, because her smile and her eyes were kind, I confessed, "I like to draw too." "Really? Will you show me your drawings sometime?" "I have them in the shed," I said, the words flying out of my mouth before I could stop them. Well, then, let's have a look right now, she said gaily. Feeling embarrassed and shy and wondering what on earth had made me say that, I ran back to the shed and reached behind a stack of clay pots and pulled out the cigar box with my stubby lead pencils and my old school tablet. In it were sketches of the hollyhocks by our veranda, of Grandfather Jim's precious lilac bush with the fence around it, and one I had started but not finished of the country courthouse with the clock and 9 cupolas perched like muffins on the roof. My drawings suddenly looked crude to me. They were missing the magic of Miss Firth's drawings. I was shy about these drawings and kept them mostly a secret. Mama and Papa knew about my drawings, but I didn't show them the tablet and they didn't ask. My sisters wouldn't care, and I didn't let my brothers see them either. Nor did I bother to tell my friends Bessie and Lou Ann about my drawings. I didn't want to talk about it. It was just something I did. Once in a while I showed them to Grandfather. He would gaze at each one, head cocked to one side, and say things like, "Yes, that's it, all right, and I think you need to fix something here somehow." Grandmother Lila knew that I liked to draw the way she liked to embroider and crochet. She was making me a counterpane, a big white bedsheet with a brown wicker basket stitched in the center, overflowing with pink and blue and purple flowers with yellow centers and green leaves surrounded by ribbon bows waving like flags. "I'll crochet a blue edging all around, Rosalie," she promised. "This will be yours someday when you're all grown up and have a home of your own." When I was younger, she had tried to teach me how to embroider flowers, petals in a lazy daisy stitch around a center of French knots, chain stitch stems, and satin stitch leaves. But I was impatient with the needle and embroidery floss and the loop that held the cloth stretched tight, and I never could stand to have a thimble on my finger. "I would rather draw the flowers, Grandmother," I told her, "like this." I took the pencil she used to write her shopping list, and on a scrap of paper I drew the morning glories that trailed over her back fence. Grandmother studied my drawing carefully. "God is giving you a special gift, Rosalie. Do good with it." After that, she then coaxed me to practice lazy daisies and French knots. Sometimes I showed her what I had drawn, and she would study the sketch and nod seriously. "A special gift," she would remind me. It was an entirely different thing showing my pictures to Miss Firth. I gave her the tablet and watched as she slowly turned the pages, studying each one. I tried to read her face to see what was going on in her mind, but I could not. When she handed the tablet back to me, she was smiling. "You are very talented, Rosalie. Do you know that?" "No, ma'am," I said, but I couldn't hold back my grin, remembering what Grandmother Lila had said. "I just do what I like to do, and you do it very well. Now then," she said, snapping off the words in a business-like way, "I'm planning to begin a class of private pupils this summer, and I would like very much to have you join the class. Would you like that? There would be no charge, with your parents' permission, naturally." I was astonished. I had not expected anything like this, and I hardly knew what to do or say except to stand there squeezing my hands together and grinning. But then I remembered my manners to thank her and say, "Oh, yes, ma'am, I did want to have her teach me. And yes, ma'am, I would sure it would be all right with my parents." Now, for the first time since the garden club luncheon, I had something to fill my mind besides the future Freedom Town. But that shows you how little I knew about the people of Dillon, and for that matter, how little Miss Emily Firth knew about them